Did John May and the Enrollment team achieve Andrew's goal of 1,000 students in the fall of 2022?
A year ago, we were just saying, Andrew had commissioned, okay, we want 1,000 students. And, we had been trying for years to get 1,000 students. Welcome to Inside Story. This is where we are inviting you as our friends and partners here at Andrew Wommack Ministries in Charis Bible College to all the amazing things that are happening here in the ministry. There's many things that you guys see, whether watching Andrew on television or our newsletters or our events. There are so many things that maybe you do see, but behind the scenes, we have some amazing things and people that God has given us for these things to happen. So I'm really excited that you're joining us on this Inside Story, and I believe you're going to be blessed in seeing who God and how it has happened that we are growing here within the ministry. And so today, I have someone that I want to introduce you to. This is John May. And so, John, welcome to Inside Story.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Really excited to have you here.
Yeah.
John's the kind of person you can just automatically tease. And so it's just so great. So I'm really excited about this one. So
very teasable.
Very teasable.
Yes,
so,
good.
So John, first, you're doing some amazing things here in the ministry, and I want to get to that. But what are some of the things that what are some of the ways that you came to know about Andrew? Yeah. And where are you originally from?
Yeah, so I'm from Kansas originally. So I grew up in a small farm town outside of Wichita, Kansas. That was very foundational for my upbringing and just growing up, learning to be a man, working with my hands, things like that. I grew up Catholic, so I knew about God. I knew that He existed. I knew that He created the world, but had no idea that He wanted a personal relationship with me and that He loved me. Was very much just about rules and following the rules and going to church on Sunday, and that was about it. But my parents, they became born-again believers around the 70s, 80s. It's one of those stories that seems to change every time I hear about it. What year was that? But they stayed in the Catholic Church, but it was when I was in high school that they finally decided to leave. And they actually had started to attend went from a Catholic church to a small Pentecostal church. And at that church, there was Andrew's materials. And so that's when I first got to be exposed, not only to Andrew's teachings, but really the gospel itself. I began to hear about God's love for me, what Jesus did for me on the cross, forgiveness, the relationship, His desire to have a relationship with me. Yeah. And so that happened in high school, and then went off to college. And through a series of personal mistakes, finally came to realize that following God is the correct path and purpose for us, and became born again when I was in college. And through already being exposed to Andrew's teachings, I just really began to dive in and learn more, and kind of just began to consume all that he had, all those free teachings that he had available. My parents loved to collect books and teachings, and so I had a library of books that I could use there. So that's awesome. Just began to read and read his books, listen to audio teachings through the website.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love with the free material, and once you get it, it creates a hunger inside of you.
Yes.
And so people are like, I want more. And I think that's one of the most amazing things about the ministry is how Andrew has offered. It's not like you get the first one free and then the rest, you got to pay for it. I mean, it's just like people can be as hungry and consume, and it really sets them on a path, on a journey.
Absolutely.
Okay, so after that, listening to Andrew,
what
was the next part of your journey? And as most of our listeners know, we have Charis Bible College.
Yes.
And so how did you get from listening to Andrew out to Colorado?
Yeah. So at the time I was attending university. I was when I got born again, I was going to get my accounting degree for no other reason other than I looked at the list of what degrees made after college, and I thought that dollar amount that accountants make seemed nice, so I'll go be an accountant and make money. But when I got born again, obviously that completely revolutionized, changed my life.
Amen.
I saw the purpose of my life was more than just making money. It was to follow Him, relationship with Him.
That's good.
And so from there, I got involved with Christian ministry on that college campus. And about that time, I met my wife, my future wife, Meredith. And just through prayer and thinking of what those next steps were, I did end up just dropping out of university. I just felt no need to continue with that once I got a taste of relationship with God. And I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to follow Him. I'm going to seek Him. I'm going to see what His will is for my life. So through just a series of events and praying, and Meredith and I, my wife is Meredith, planning out of what we wanted to do, and through my relationship with Andrew of listening to him and his materials, and through my parents as well, I just had a desire to come to Charis. Cool. My parents actually, to kind of date how far back this goes, they were correspondence students, so they got the DVDs
Nice.
in the mail, and I actually did my first year correspondence. So I did my first year all with DVDs, locked myself in a basement bedroom and watched the first year Charis that way. Did physical tests, and you got to mail them in, you got to wait for them to come back to see if you pass the test.
We've gotten so much better since
yes,
then.
we have.
It's amazing. But I'm
Yes,
glad we
have.
had that then for you.
Yes, correct. It was great. Just getting more foundation, more deep into the Word and the understanding of our identity, God's love for us, who we are, what we have, what's been provided for us with the finished work of Jesus. So from there, my wife and I actually got married July 24th, 2010. We took our honeymoon 5 days, 5 days for our honeymoon, packed up a U-Haul, and moved out to Colorado so that I could attend my year two out in Colorado Springs at the time at the Elkton building. So it lined up with my parents. My parents did their first year, and so we lined up and we did our year two together. And we got to graduate together.
That's pretty cool.
It was really special. My parents, they're obviously the biggest influence to this day, sharing the gospel with me, teaching me from that time in high school.
That's awesome.
Showing me about God's love through practically teaching me, but then showing me His love.
So did you do a third year as well at that time?
I did. So I finished year two, and then I did year three after that, and I did the ministry school with Greg Moore.
Yes.
Yep.
And then, did you stay in Colorado? Did you find?
So while I was, my wife and I transitioned out, and so I was looking for work and was applying everywhere, couldn't find anything. My mom, in her wisdom, was like, well, while you're doing nothing, why don't you go and volunteer in the phone center, in communication services? We called it the phone center at the time. So I was like, well, seems like a useful experience to have while I'm coming out to Charis and serving at the ministry. And so I did that, and a few months later was offered a job to work on the phones. And so I did that, did prayer ministry, customer care. And then it was through that I met Andrew Wirtz. And then also at the time, Lindsay Dykstra was working in the phone center as well.
Yep.
And was moved rather quickly. I started answering doctrinal questions for the ministry about 4 or 5 months after starting working there. So I moved over to that role and did that for about 6 months or so. That was an incredibly impactful time for me because I got to see people's thought process and how to then respond to questions that people have. And one of the instructors at Charis, Barry Bennett, he was instrumental in kind of getting our philosophy and how do we respond to these different types of questions.
So was he working in there at the same time?
He was not. At that point, I think that was about when I was in my second year is when he kind of came on and became a full-time instructor.
Okay.
So that was like right before I started working at the phone center. He had moved over and was teaching.
That's neat.
But yeah, so then from there, from answering doctrinal questions, I started doing prayer training, and then became the prayer training supervisor for the phone center.
Yeah.
And did that for about 4 years while overseeing the doctrinal questions team in that department as well. And we did prison ministry. We sent out the lessons to people that wanted it, that were incarcerated, and that was an awesome thing. So I oversaw that program as well while working in communication services.
Yeah,
so,
that's a lot.
Yes, it was. I learned so much. It was an incredible period of growth from the people that I was around, learning from them, while attending Charis, while working, while practically applying what I was learning in school.
Yeah.
It was like the perfect recipe for growth and discipleship.
And even today, that's what we still do with a lot of our Bible school students.
That's correct.
So many of our Bible school students are going through school. But they're learning all of this ministry. They're getting to apply.
Yes.
Or even now we have shifts that are 24 hours a day.
Yes.
7 days a week now, which it was different when you were doing it. What were the hours when you were doing prayer ministry?
When it was 4 a.m. and as a new employee, you always kind of get stuck in
the glorious
you're new,
4 shift.
4 a.m. And so that was an adjustment because you go to school 4 a.m. You work about 4 hours, and you go to school 4 hours, and then you come back and work the last shift there. So it was about 4 a.m. I think to 10 p.m. at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and hearing from Andrew Wommack of sharing kind of like those changes, and then coming back and seeing the operation now.
Yeah, it's.
I mean, it was a big deal what we were doing then with the growth that was happening then.
Yep.
And it's not even close to what they're doing now with over 800,000 calls. I don't even know what it was back then.
We're going to hit over 1 million calls this year.
Yes.
And having 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which means that truly to the whole world.
Yes.
As those that can speak English, and then just recently started our Spanish section of the prayer line. And so you have been a part of helping us even build things and put things in order since then. So thank you.
Yes,
that's awesome.
You're welcome.
But
it's an honor.
With all of that and how great it was, you still left us.
I did leave.
You left Colorado. What's wrong with you?
I did leave. After my time in the phone center, communication services, I did transition over to Charis. So I did work at Charis for about 10 months. I did Charis Bible Studies. I ran that program. And then I transitioned a little bit into to the alumni department and was working in that area, which I loved. I loved all of that aspect. The helping students that come out to Charis and then go out and use what they were learning, and helping foster connection among our graduates. I love that. But around that time, my wife and I had our first son, Oliver, and he was about 6 months old at the time. And I had through relationship, I had some friends that worked at a small software company, and they approached me about an opening. I wasn't seeking, I wasn't looking. It's just awesome how God uses relationships to bring about opportunity. And so through that, they told me about this job opportunity, and it was a position that worked 100% from home. And so I had
And this was pre-COVID, so that's pretty.
It was. Yeah. It was, and we were doing that way before everybody else was doing it. So it was no big deal for us. So it was an incredible opportunity because things like that didn't exist.
Yeah.
And it was an opportunity to learn a new skill. It was a sales position for this software company, something I had never thought about doing, never considered. Who would want to go be a salesman? It wasn't me, but there was just something about this opportunity and being able to work from home to help support my wife, help be around my son. It was just something I couldn't say no to, and had peace about it, and I just knew it was from God. Through that gave us opportunity to move back to Kansas, so that we could be around our family. My wife is from Kansas as well, and so we were around awesome. My parents, her parents. So we also had 2 more sons while we were there, so now we're up to 3. So we enjoyed the free babysitting and the free food that we got going over to my parents' house and my wife's parents. It was just a really sweet time for me to be around, support Meredith, support the family, be around the boys while they were going through their really important developmental times. And it was special. It was a sweet season that I got to.
And you were doing a lot of real estate and all that as well.
Yeah.
So you were kind of multi-versed in that sense.
Yeah. So I was learning that sales job, which that was incredibly insightful, and I learned all sorts of things through that. I had no idea really what I was getting into, but it taught me so much and gave me a skill set that I didn't know
That's awesome.
that I had on the inside of me.
Yeah.
And so that was a special opportunity. But moving back, my dad and his background as being a farmer, just kind of understanding the value of having assets and owning property, owning land, and knowing that that appreciates over time.
Amen.
And the importance of having assets that produce cash flow for you. I convinced my dad to start a real estate business with me. And through the time of being there back in Kansas, we went from owning nothing to having 30 rental units in Kansas.
That's awesome.
So while I was doing that, I was dabbling in real estate, learning about that world, which that was also learned a lot. That was made a lot of mistakes there, learned a lot, but you can see how God blesses, God is in those things and blesses those things when you step out and take risks with knowing God's heart towards us and His desire for us to prosper, to be blessed financially. Yeah. He always delivers.
Amen. So you had this obviously God connection.
Yes.
So I remember getting called in. We decided we're going to have this meeting, and we're going to have this meeting with John May. So Mike and I, Andrew Wirtz, and Jeremy, and our CEO Billy Epperhart.
Yes.
So we brought you in. We brought you all the way from Kansas.
Yes.
Because I think that how many times have you tried to be recruited by Andrew Wirtz?
So we always maintained a connection with Colorado. We loved Colorado, and so we would always make an effort to come back out at least once a year while we were living in Kansas. And every part of my visit back was to spend some time with Andrew and his wife Jeremy, and a few other coworkers from the ministry. And so about every time there was usually a conversation from Andrew, in his way of doing things. It's not putting pressure on anything, but are you happy? Are you satisfied with what you're doing? And for the most part, every time my answer was yes. I love what I'm doing. I'm incredibly happy living in Kansas, close to family, raising my boys.
Everything was great until it changed.
Everything was great.
Yay!
And it really, Andrew teaches about a holy dissatisfaction, and that really was what it was. I look back on that time in Kansas, and Meredith and I have talked about this a lot. We had it good. We had it easy. It was easy, cheap, cheap in Kansas, and we had a good life. But something changed in my heart, and I was looking at all these things that I was doing, and it just was like, this just isn't doing it for me anymore. I feel like I've learned everything that there was to learn in my current role. I'm not feeling challenged. Not really feeling like I'm growing in the Lord.
Being stretched.
Yeah, absolutely not. And I'm the type of person that craves that and desires that. And so it's so funny how these things happen. I got an email from the ministry, and it was job openings. Like, we're hiring. And I was like, well, that's interesting. I'll just, I get those every once in a while. Oh, I'm curious what they're hiring for. And it was a nice long laundry list of positions that were open. Yeah. And director of admissions just popped out to me in that email. Yeah. And I was like, that's interesting. So I get out my phone. I send a text to Andrew Wirtz and say, hey, what's this job about? Yeah. And in very rapidly, I got connected back with Will Royer. And so I know Will from our time back in the phone center, back in communication services. He was my right-hand man. Oh, that's awesome. So when I left the phone center, he took over my position as the prayer supervisor. And so really quickly got hooked up with Will and had some initial interviews. Yeah.
And then the infamous lunch.
And you know that today is the 1-year anniversary that I flew out.
Oh, really?
Yes, for that
awesome.
interview. So my wife actually sent me some pictures this morning as I was driving into work. She was like, look at what happened. You're doing this interview with Carrie today. And
so director of admissions was a significant thing even a year ago. A year ago, we were just saying, Andrew had commissioned, we want 1,000 students. And we had been trying for years to get 1,000 students, and not that people weren't hungry or passionate, but there was just seasons. And then how do we call people to this amazing opportunity, whether it's then they go through distance education and correspondence, those type of things, or they come here on campus.
Yes.
And so we were relaunching Andrew and Andrew Wommack and Billy Epperhart had said, okay, let's do it. And so systems and people and positions, we started building an actual recruitment, admissions, enrollment office within the college, truly to not just be a college, to eventually have thousands upon thousands and thousands of students here in Woodland Park. And so we needed the right person. I got right you.
It's
awesome.
The position that I stepped into and the where kind of it was at, it felt like just a really easy and natural fit. Through the work that you and Mike had done, and Caleb Stewart, Executive Director of Operations, Will had done. I stepped into a situation where it was kind of just like, all right, here's the speedboat.
That's awesome.
You need to sit and just drive it. And so that's what it felt like.
Don't run into the banks and aim for 1,000.
Right, yeah. That's all I heard for about 6 months. 1,000 students. But it really was such an awesome situation for me to come in and just kind of, let's keep going, guys. Everything is moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
We just need to land the plane. We just need to finish.
And regrettably, we did not reach 1,000 students. We reached 1,055.
That's correct. That's absolutely right. We met the goal, and that was such an awesome experience that day. It was a season, so kind of going from my easy life in Kansas and being thrown onto the speedboat was a little bit of a...
If you were going to be stretched, you obviously had to come to Charis.
That's correct. God was like, oh, you'd like to be stretched.
Well,
okay,
then,
let's
come
go.
on.
Yeah. So, there was a season of intensity, and all of us at Charis were working for that one goal, and it was kind of an exciting time to be a part of. I'll never forget that summer and leading up to that fall registration. Yeah. And as we saw those numbers tick up, and we saw that
we had a live ticker that we were watching, because and it's not that there's something magical about 1,000.
Right.
But it's the dynamic of Andrew's vision and Jamie's vision to go as far and as deep with the gospel as possible.
Yes.
And so the dynamic of the more people that are coming in and getting discipled and equipped,
that's correct,
then the more people that we can send out and touch the world.
That's correct.
And so there's this blessing with all of those thousands if they touch one, and if they touch 10, and if whatever the call of God that we get to help disciple and unlock within them, that was what you guys worked so hard to do. And so we're raising up currently now I think we're like 1,096. We had January enrollment.
Correct.
And we're well ahead even where we were last year, because Andrew has a vision for 2,500 students and beyond.
That's
that
correct.
doesn't even count the 800 plus students, about 700 plus stateside.
That's
so you're
correct.
also part of stateside enrollment and admissions
That's
for
correct.
all of our 25 different stateside campuses.
That's correct.
Now, do you also do admissions and enrollment for our international offices?
We do not do for international.
Well, if you'd like to be stretched. No.
I'm almost certain that there will be a day where we will help support those international locations, which we're happy to do.
Because we've got 9,000 plus students globally.
Yes.
And so such a huge chunk of those, you've literally talked to, touched, met. That's exciting.
And we have international students that come here to Woodland Park.
Yep.
We have international students that will come through our website, and then we'll help redirect them. To that local Charis campus that's near them. So we do assist with that.
That's awesome.
Right now as well. And we have the online campus as well, which is building and growing. We have around 1,000 students that are active in that campus too. And we're excited for the potential for that to grow.
And Andrew's vision to build the campus out, the dormitories especially, this is something we're working on.
Yes.
Even currently, pushing ahead, getting the permits, working through all the legalities of the building stuff. But we had over 500 plus students that shared that their number one reason that they kind of hindered them.
Yeah.
This, there are probably multiple things, but that number one was they couldn't find housing.
Correct.
Here in Woodland Park. And so that's significant. Andrew building these dorms is going to be kind of another level of what you're going to be able to recruit to and admit people into. That's exciting.
It's very exciting, not only from the standpoint of enrollment, giving them a affordable place to live that's right next to campus.
Yeah.
They'll be able to just walk out their door, walk over to the auditorium, walk over to the barn. I think it's going to take for those students, there'll be another level of discipleship that goes along with that as well.
Yeah.
And the staff that we'll have built out and the training that we'll have for them of how they'll be able to engage and work with those students and help them grow in their relationship with the Lord. We can see the practicality of it, of being able to live on campus and do that in a way that's affordable. But I don't even know if we realize how impactful it's going to be for the students from a spiritual perspective of their discipleship. It's just going to be another layer of discipleship for these students that are coming out and coming to Charis.
So let me ask, with admissions, we're also in a number of meetings sometimes about students, our current students. So you don't just admit them, but what do you do once they are on site? That's a big part of your job.
Yes, it is. So my role with enrollment is I help all the students from application to graduation, and then from there, it's not done at year 2. We have that year 3 that's important as well. So we want students to attend all the way through year 3 completion. And so I oversee that the student services type aspect, student experience when it comes to the different tools that they use for learning, the way that they get their teachings, the way they take their tests.
Their online accesses. And
absolutely.
They have issues. You also oversee the student advisor, dean team.
Yes,
so working with the students to help them apply.
Yep.
And maybe course correct if they need to in the school
Absolutely.
year. So you get a whole bunch of teams underneath of you.
Yes, and it goes back to that thing about stretching. God said.
It's a theme now.
Yes, it is. So I applied for director of admissions, and that's the role I got, and that's what I started in. And it was last summer that I moved into senior director of enrollment, and that's where my world kind of grew to not only just helping students get here, but then helping them stay. And so we help with all that. We have a new office of the bursar, which helps with tuition payments and making sure things are accurate and quickly responded to there. Our registrar team as well, making sure records again are accurate. And then the student advising team is such a huge role in fostering connection amongst the student body, but then also making sure those individual students are thriving while they're here at Charis.
Because we find that this is really important, is that someone will get a call to come.
Yes.
And so you guys are getting to touch that first, yes, this is God. Will He provide? Come on.
Yep.
But then when people do make those steps of faith, the devil's right there trying to say, you need to quit, you don't have the money, this is going wrong.
Yes.
And so your team's really integral to making sure that they continue, that if God called you, He can sustain you. And you just get to be some of that arms and hands and mouth and feet. They get to encourage students to go the distance, because the enemy, he does not want the students here learning the Word of God.
Absolutely. And we really do see, and with my team, I talk about this all the time, we are critical to the discipleship of our students. So what they learn from the stage, what all of our awesome teachers teach from stage is so fantastic, and it's the Word, and it helps them come to know who they are and God's love for them. But what my team does is kind of fill that gap of that personal touch and connection that we all need and desire as believers. And we provide resources. We help get them connected into local churches. Awesome. We also provide encouragement, a smiling face, a high five. If you're going through a rough patch or rough season, we're there to help support as well.
Amen.
Because students that come and they see it all the way through, their life will be changed because the word will change their life.
Amen.
And sometimes people need encouragement.
They do.
And we're there to help.
Well, I'm excited since we started this interview. You started off on one We even promoted you in the interview. You went from director of admissions to senior director of enrollment. And I believe God's got even more ahead. And truly, you are at a place where the vision is big, so it's going to stretch you, but you are also helping stretch students and teams. We just want to say thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for equipping your own heart and your relationship with the Lord, and then letting God use you. And so we're excited. Thank you. And I believe that there'll probably be even people your teams touch, maybe friends and partners that could be watching this as far as their own journey. So John, thank you. Thank you to your wife and your children for being a part of this journey and just raising up and being part of this amazing vision. So
awesome. It's an honor. Thank you.
Amen. Well, thank you guys as friends and partners for watching. Again, there is so much vision that Andrew has here at the ministry. Amazing people that are touching it and expanding it so that we can raise up people for the gospel and truly take this good news everywhere in the world. And this is because of you also as friends and partners helping make this possible. So thank you so much for your partnership in the ministry you play here in Andrew Wommack Ministries and Charis Bible College. We love you. Thank you. Please join us again on our next time that we come together for the Inside Story. We'll be sharing more with you of the amazing things that God is doing here at the ministry and with your partnership. God bless you and have a good day.
On this Inside Story, Carrie Pickett interviewed John May, Charis Senior Director of Enrollment. Through his parents and attending a small Pentecostal church in Wichita, Kansas, John discovered Andrew Wommack's teaching on grace and realized God wanted to have a relationship with him. Watch the AWM Now presentation of one Charis student and see the impact on her life from Andrew's Healing University course and attending Charis Bible College in Phoenix.
Welcome to AWM Now, a small glimpse at how the partners of Andrew Wommack Ministries and Charis Bible College continue to bring freedom to people around the world. People like Charis, Arizona student Danielle. For 17 years, Danielle suffered severe panic attacks and thoughts of suicide, leading her down a vicious cycle that crippled every area of her life. Because she believed that God didn't always heal, Danielle was left without any hope of breaking free from the torment she experienced every day. Until her parents introduced her to Andrew's Healing University course, where she discovered the truth about God's will to heal, chipping away at the religious doctrine that had kept her bound for so long.
I had a big commute time, and so I would just listen to the Healing Universities on my drive. And that's where I just started just hearing the truth for the first time. And so after I had one of the worst panic attacks of my life, I just kept renewing my mind in all of Andrew's teaching. A couple of days later, I ended up just getting completely healed of depression and anxiety and panic attacks. Had I not known the truth of the word that Andrew Wommack had shared, I don't know if I would be here.
Wanting to build a strong foundation on these new truths, Danielle decided to enroll into our Charis location in Phoenix, Arizona, alongside her mom. And today, they both continue to make the 4-hour commute to sit under the same word that set Danielle free from anxiety and panic attacks, discovering more depth to God's word than she could have ever imagined.
You know, you can watch the Gospel Truth TV and everything like that, and you get so much out of that, but when you go to Charis Bible College, it goes deeper than you had ever expected. It's like you hear stuff on TV and it's like the tip of the iceberg. The depth of what you learn about God's truth will just change your mind, change your soul, change your body. Thank you so much, Andrew, for showing us these truths. You've changed my life in so many ways.
Thank you, friends and partners, for helping us provide teaching curriculum for people like Danielle, breaking through the lies of the enemy with the uncompromising truth of God's love and grace. To learn more about the Healing University series that helped set Danielle free, visit awmi.net/healingyou today.
In July, Carrie interviews Caleb Stewart, a young pastor who was burning out until a member of his congregation told him about Andrew Wommack. Find out how God changed his life forever through Andrew's revelations and Charis Bible College. See you next time.